Welcome back to Deer and Donuts. Today we're diving into a bit of a controversial topic. Can you take this bad boy right here, 5.56/223, and use it to effectively kill a deer? Now this round is by far one of the most popular centerfire rifle rounds in production right now. And white-tailed deer are by far the most popular big game hunted animal in the United States. So let's do a clash of the titans. See if you can use this thing on your next deer trip. Now, before we dive into the numbers, the facts, and the stats of whether this can be used effectively, I have a couple of things to cover. Number one, this may not be legal in your state. It is on you to go check your regulations, make sure that a 223 works in your state before you load it up and take it out on a deer hunt. Deer and Donuts wants nothing to do with your lawsuit. I actually beg of you not to sue me. One, because I don't have a lot to take, and two, then my wife will find out the total of all my hunting gear, and that will end in just tragedy for me. So, do yourself a favor, check your regulations. Number two, understand your grandpappy probably used this bad boy, killed a truckload of deer running around in his flannel jacket, denim jeans, ripping cigs. This was probably the hottest thing since sliced bread back in the 60s, and he probably killed a mountain of deer. You know what else has killed a ton of deer? A Honda Civic. That doesn't mean that's what you want to use. So we're going to dive into, like I said, the numbers, the facts, and the stats, and see if this is something that is truly viable for a hunter. So we're going to dive into a couple of topics, and first is going to be the energy that this thing retains. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how rifle hunting works, you pull the trigger, this thing flies through the air, hits the animal, causes shock, causes trauma, deer goes down. That's how it's done. The widely accepted number that this needs to transfer at the point of impact is 1,000 foot-pounds of energy for a white-tailed deer. Now, luckily for you guys, we don't have to guess. Already nerded out, jumped in the ballistic calculator, compared two different rounds. It's going to be that 55 grain ball ammo, as well as a 77 grain Sierra Match King. So what does that 22 grains do for you? Well, it jumps the range that you can get that 1,000 foot-pounds energy 50%. That sounds like a huge jump right up until you look at the actual yardage of it. The 55 grain ammo can get you about a football field to work with inside of that magic 1,000 foot-pounds of energy number. So for you mathematicians out there, that means the 77 grain gets you out to like 150. It's not a huge jump, despite the percentage change. Now, I think that's situationally dependent. If you hunt thick wooded lots, a swamp, something of that nature, 150 yards is probably way longer than you're ever gonna have the opportunity to take a shot. So you may be able to make this work and keep it within that range that you need to. Now, this is never going to be a long-range cartridge. You're not going to be taking shots all the way across a big cornfield. Definitely not using this out west, but keep it within 150 yards. The math says this just might work. But the ballistics are not just the end-all be-all of making a decision. You also got to consider a couple of other things, such as shot placement. Every year we see hunters take a massive trophy buck with a recurved bow and a 1-inch broadhead. It can be done, but they know something that most of us don't always practice, and that is a super disciplined shot placement and shot process. Because of how light this round is and the modest speeds it travels at, you really got to be really disciplined in your shot selection. You really need to limit it just to bow angles. It's not going to bust through a front shoulder. You're not going to be able to take a frontal shot and guarantee it gets through to the vitals on a big buck. But if you have a perfect broadside shot or a quartering away shot, I think you can probably slip this in and it's gonna do just fine. Beyond just keeping it within 150 yards on a perfect shot, I think the other thing you need to consider is your ammo selection. We already talked about getting a heavier round, but also the bullet construction matters. Getting this ball ammo that's designed for ballistic vests and overseas use, probably not your best route. I don't know about you, I haven't seen a lot of deer running around in Kevlar vests. If you have, you need to stop watching this video, jump on Zillow, and move immediately because your neighborhood is absolutely terrifying if deer have to wear armor. But when you jump to better bullet construction and heavier rounds, it does a couple of things for you. One, that BC goes up. Not a ton. This is never going to be a great round for in the wind, but it bucks that wind a little bit more. Beyond that, it's going to retain its weight and expand correctly on impact. And that's really what you need to get an effective kill. And that's really what we're here for as hunters, is to make sure that we are doing things as humanely as possible. So let's answer a couple of questions. Should you use this? Well, if you have pretty much any other options, the answer is no. I can run out of fingers and toes counting the number of offerings that are going to be far more effective for taking a white-tailed deer. But can you use this? I think the answer is potentially. You have to know your ability, the ammo's ability, and be super, super disciplined with your shot selection. But if you're willing to do all of that, I think there's a case to be made for this being an effective whitetail round within very, very strict parameters. Now again, do I think it's the best round? No, wouldn't even make my probably top 20. But in the fact versus myth of whether this can be used effectively as a whitetail round, I think as long as you're willing to stay within those parameters, you can probably be fairly successful. Now I want you guys to jump in the comments, let me know what you think as to whether this can be an effective whitetail round. But until next time, I'm Matt with Deer and Donuts. Thanks for stopping by. Goodbye.